coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. This is the award-winning ParaReality Radio. Good evening, everybody. My name's Sandman, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Well, it is Friday, September 21st, 2019, and of course, you know that it means it's time for another episode of your favorite paranormal podcast, ParaReality Radio. Okay, so I guess by now, just about everyone has heard about the results of the Loch Ness DNA project, which were released earlier this week. As you can guess, this definitely interested me, and I've been following the project off and on now ever since I found out about it not too long ago. And the results of this project may be startling for some and expected for others. Some people may be pissed off, and some may be saying, like, you know, I told you so. But no matter what side you're on, you have to admit that this was something that really needed to be done. And it looks like, as far as I'm concerned anyway, that we finally have an end to the mystery of what the Loch Ness Monster actually is. And that's what I'll be talking about tonight on ParaReality Radio. However, before I get started, let me tell you how you can get in contact with me here in the show, because you know there are several different ways that you can do it. First of all, you can visit the show website, ParaReality.com. Send me an email, sandman@ParaReality.com. You can also find the ParaReality Radio Facebook page just by looking for ParaReality Radio in a Facebook search. And, I keep forgetting this is like the thing. You have to ask people to like your page. So here it goes. Please don't forget to like the ParaReality Radio page on Facebook. I don't know what that's going to get me, but apparently it's important. And also, I am on Twitter, and you can follow me there. My handle on Twitter is @ParaRealRadio. That's ParaRealRadio @ParaRealRadio. And of course, you can always call me. Excuse me. You can always call me on the studio line. Got a little something in my throat. Sorry. You can always still call the studio line at 615-692-1170. That number to call, once again, is 615-692-1170. Leave me a message on the studio line, and just be aware that I will probably play your comment back on the show. Simply just by leaving me a message is giving me your permission to play your comment back. If you don't want me to do so, you need to let me know somewhere in your message. And of course, I'm always in the studio these days working on the show off and on. So I just may actually decide to answer the phone and you can have a conversation with me, but you never know unless you call. So if you have some sort of comment you want to play, got a question you want to ask, if you got a story that you just want to tell, just leave me a message. Leave it on the studio line, 615-692-1170. I believe that there is something like maybe like a 5-minute long timer that you have to leave your message. If it happens to be over 5 minutes, just call back and continue on. Just let me know. All right. Well, so those are all the different ways that you can get in contact with me here on the show, ways that you can interact with me, Sandman. Let me go over them one more time. Facebook, ParaReality Radio page on Facebook. Don't forget to like it. Follow me on Twitter @ParaRealRadio. Email me, sandman@ParaReality.com. Or finally, you can call me on the studio line at 615-692-1170. Those are all the different ways you can get in touch with the show, interact with me here on ParaReality Radio. All right. I brought back the email segment of the show. I wasn't doing a lot of fan mail for a while, and I don't know why I stopped doing the fan mail segment. I just, how it doesn't take too long to develop a habit, and I just stopped doing the fan mail for whatever reason, and all of a sudden it became a habit to not do it, and I just didn't do it. But I've been trying to bring it back. So every episode now I am reading a fan mail, and this one comes from Brian, whose last name I will withhold. And Brian writes, and this is in reference to actually a couple of different episodes that I've done here. It's the Hollywood Star Whackers episode that I did with part-time co-host Eric. As a matter of fact, that very first episode that Eric and I did together was Hollywood Star Whackers. And this also relates to the last episode that Eric and I did together with the Epstein conspiracy theories, which I'm going to have more on that later. Cue the creepy clock in the background. It always happens every show. So anyway, Brian writes, Michael Hutchins, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, Kate Spade, David Carradine, were they all killed like Epstein? Did it go down like the assassination of Mahmoud al-Mabhouh in Dubai? Now, I know I probably screwed that up because I am horrible at pronouncing freaking names like that. But the assassination of Mahmoud al-Mabhouh happened on the 19th of January, all the way back in 2010. He was in a hotel room in Dubai. He was actually a co-founder of the military wing of Hamas, and he was wanted by the Israeli government for the kidnapping and murder of 2 Israeli soldiers in 1989. And he purchased some weapons from Iran for use in the Gaza Strip and stuff like that. And those are just a couple of things that have been cited as possible motives for his assassination. He was apparently killed with a combination of a muscle relaxant and pillow suffocation. And this attracted international attention in part due to allegations that it was ordered by the Israeli government and carried out by Mossad agents. Like 33 people were involved supposedly in this thing, and they had fake passports and stuff. So this was a big deal. So Brian, thanks for your email. I'm not going to compare Epstein's death to Muhammad's death. However, Michael Hutchins, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, Kate Spade, David Carradine, they all committed suicide. And what's interesting about this is the Michael Hutchins and Michael Hutchins and David Carradine suicides were probably accidental suicides. Well, actually, Chris Cornell, you can throw that in there too. How could I forget Chris Cornell? So you got Chris Cornell, Michael Hutchins, and David Carradine, who were all ruled as suicide, but in all reality, it was probably an accidental suicide. But when you look at all three of those, you'll see that it was all three of them were kind of under strange circumstances. Michael Hutchins, God, it's been so long since he died, I can't remember the exact circumstances behind his death. A lot of people say it was some sort of autoerotic thing, kind of like David Carradine. Now, his death definitely was autoeroticism and just went a little bit too far with it. Chris Cornell had nothing to do with autoeroticism, but I think what happened with him was he accidentally took a little bit too much of his anti-anxiety medication and really just lost control, didn't realize what it was that he was doing. And then Chester Bennington, Kate Spade, I don't know the circumstances surrounding their deaths. I do know that both of them were suicides. So you've got all these people here who were victims of suicide, except for the last one, Mahmoud, and he was definitely killed. So I don't know. I don't know that you can take Michael Hutchins, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, Kate Spade, and David Carradine and say that they were killed like Epstein. They had no significant criminal past to speak of. I'm sure probably they've been arrested at some point in time for maybe drugs or DUIs or something like that. But I mean, they weren't, as far as we know, child molesters and sexual deviants like Epstein was. If you haven't listened to the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories show, you really need to check that out. That was the last episode that I did a couple of weeks ago. And by the way, Eric and I, oh, there's my creepy clock again. Eric and I are going to be back in the studio, and we're going to do a follow-up to the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories. That's going to be in the next show, but I'll tell you about that. So, Brian, thank you for the email. I can't answer your question. I can say that I don't think that the first group of people were killed like Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think that anybody had any ill will towards them or had a reason to kill them. The assassination of Mahmoud, I don't think you could rate Jeffrey Epstein up there with anything like that either. I just think that, it's a good, I guess, interesting theory that you've got there, but I think it's a little far stretching there, far reaching. I don't think that those have anything to do with one another. So thanks, Brian, for that email. I really appreciate that. Always good to hear from the fans. If you got an email or question about the show, comment, whatever, once again, you know how to get in touch with me. Email the show, sandman@parareality.com. You can call me on the studio line, leave your comment or question, 615-692-1170, or tweet it to me at ParaReal Radio. Go on the show Facebook page, ParaReality Radio on Facebook, and you can ask me a question on Facebook. And while you're there, like the page. Apparently that's important for Facebook people. So now I've wasted the first 13 minutes or so of the show with all of this. Let's get into talking about why we're all here in the first place, which is the Loch Ness report. So in case you have been, living under a rock for the last couple of weeks, or maybe you just don't follow stuff like this, which if you're listening to this show, I'm sure that you do follow this kind of info. But unless you've been, living under a rock or been in prison, or maybe you just don't have TV or internet anymore until now because you listen to the show. Didn't make sense, did it? But anyway, this has made big news. As a matter of fact, I just got finished watching the 2-hour documentary on the Travel Channel about this report. And this has to do with the Loch Ness Monster. Does the Loch Ness Monster exist? If so, what is it? And how can we find out? So, one of the most famous and beloved cryptids in all the world has got to be Scotland's Loch Ness Monster. Reports of this thing describe it as a large, long-necked beast, kind of like a plesiosaur. Yet, Nessie has remained, curiously, elusive to any type of scientific searches. There's been multiple sonar scans done of the loch, and they've basically come up blank. But there's more than one way to skin a monster, right? And an international team of scientists led by Dr. Neil Gemmell from the University of Otago in New Zealand has just revealed the first results from an eDNA analysis of the waters of Loch Ness. Now remember, this is just the first round of results. They're still releasing they've still got some more stuff that they've got to study. So, in case you don't know what eDNA is, eDNA stands for environmental DNA, or eDNA is what they're calling it. This is DNA that's collected from a variety of environmental samples like soil, water, snow, or supposedly even air. And you get these samples rather than directly sampled from like an individual organism. You get them from the soil, snow, water, air, stuff like that. So as various organisms interact with the environment, DNA is basically expelled. It's kind of like shed off, and it accumulates in their surroundings. Some example sources of eDNA include, but not necessarily limited to, things like feces, mucus, shed skin, like from a snake or even humans, carcasses, and hair. These samples can be analyzed by high-throughput DNA sequencing methods known as metagenomics, metabarcoding, and single-species detection, and they get rapid measurement and monitoring of biodiversity. Now, in order to better differentiate between organisms within a sample, DNA metabarcoding is used, in which the sample is analyzed and uses previously studied DNA libraries to determine what organisms are present. In other words, they take the DNA sample and compare it against other known samples, other known organisms that are supposed to be in the area or even not in the area, just a wide sample. So I have seen a couple of TV shows where this eDNA technique was used. The first one that comes to mind was, and I can't remember the name of the series, but it was like a limited series on the search for the Yeti. And this guy used eDNA up in the Himalayas to try to find Yeti DNA. And they found a lake, like an isolated lake in a basin, and took a whole bunch of samples from this lake. And they didn't find any unknown DNA that would be considered to be a Yeti, but they did find some DNA of some like goat or antelope or something like that they thought was either extinct or wasn't supposed to be in the area. It's been a couple of years since I've seen this. Maybe it was last year. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it does work. And this is the second time that I've seen anything that had to do with eDNA. The results of the Loch Ness survey come after the scientists who were with Dr. Gemmell took hundreds of samples of water from Loch Ness and other nearby lochs. DNA from each sample was captured, extracted, and sequenced, and this gave the team 500 million sequences that, when compared against global DNA databases, show a comprehensive picture of life that's present in the loch. The bacteria, the fish, and everything else in between. Most species are so small you can barely see them, but there are a few that are larger, and the big question here is there anything big enough to explain the sorts of sightings people have made over the years that have led to this myth or this legend of a monster or creature in Loch Ness? One of the most popular theories is that there might be some sort of Jurassic age reptile or population of Jurassic age reptiles, such as a plesiosaur that's present in Loch Ness. Now, the legend of the Loch Ness Monster, it dates back about 1,500 years, so it's been going on a long time. But it wasn't until the first reported sightings in the infamous doctor's photo in the 1930s that it began to capture people's imagination. The Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie as it's so affectionately called, has been a strangely elusive creature ever since. And the photo, the previously mentioned doctor's photo from the 1930s, from all the way back then, was not too long ago revealed to have been faked. It was a toy submarine, I think, like mounted on some wood or something like that. It was faked anyway. Now, rumors of a strange creature lurking in the murky waters of Loch Ness continue to abound, though, despite the fact that this picture has been proven to be faked by the doctor. The most famous picture, by the way, of Nessie ever. And I'm sure by now you've all seen it. It looks good. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It looks good, but there's always been something about it. And I've been seeing this picture since I was a kid. There's always something about it that you just quite couldn't put your finger on. It was like, I don't know what it is about this picture, but this looks pretty good, but it might not be real. Well, it wasn't. It was a fake. So there was, and this may or may not be a surprise depending on your feelings about the Loch Ness Monster, absolutely no evidence of any Jurassic-era animal DNA, including plesiosaurs, in any of the samples that Dr. Gemmell and his team tested. In fact, there's no evidence at all to support that a Loch Ness Monster in reptilian form ever lived in Loch Ness at all. The environmental DNA data doesn't support the belief that the monster is a plesiosaur. Nor did they find shark DNA or catfish DNA, anything like that. And those are two other theories for Nessie's identity that have come out in recent years. But that doesn't mean that the search was fruitless. There was one other theory, and it was floated very early on, as far back as the first reported sighting in 1933, that this creature, Nessie, could in fact be a giant eel. Now, this theory was later dismissed, but Dr. Gemmell and his team, their research shows that that idea, if not really the eel itself, but the idea kind of has legs after all. The study found a large amount of eel DNA. Now, eels are very plentiful in Loch Ness. In fact, eel DNA was found at pretty much every location that was sampled. And researchers had earlier suggested that a giant eel could, in fact, explain some of the sightings, at least. That idea then lost popularity, but as theories about the extinct reptiles became more common, the eel theory went away. But there have been ongoing reports over the years of very large eels by a number of witnesses. Specifically, the eel DNA is from European eels, which does present another problem, apparently. As far as biologists know, these eels don't grow any larger than around 5 feet, maybe a little less, but 5 feet is about the biggest you're going to see these things. Now, to be consistent with Nessie reports, the eel would have to be quite a bit bigger, because everybody that's ever reported seeing Nessie has reported seeing this huge creature, even though no one has seen the whole thing. The way that they describe it with the humps and everything, they say that it is a large creature. Excuse me, I had to get some from my throat there and a drink. So, how does that explain? If an eel is Nessie, and these eels only grow to 5 feet, how does that explain the large whatever it was that people are reported seeing? Now, the data, of course, there's no way that it can reveal the size of these eels that are shedding their DNA into the loch. But the whole idea isn't without precedent. And another strange beast sighted in a Highland loch could have been an eel. You'll have to go all the way back to 1865, and reportedly a huge sea serpent was sighted in a loch in Lowerbost. Now, whatever it was had an eel-like appearance. This, of course, led to the conclusion that it was, in fact, probably an eel. Now, Loch Lowerbost is not too far away from Loch Ness. And it makes sense that if there are eels in Loch Ness that are giant-sized eels, that there could also be giant-sized eels in lochs that surround Loch Ness and in the surrounding areas. So, was this sighting in 1865 of a sea serpent, was it an eel? Well, the descriptions describe it as having an eel-like appearance. So it was probably an eel. And to further kind of like solidify this eel theory, divers have claimed that they've seen eels as thick as their legs in Loch Ness. Some of the descriptions suggest that eels with a circumference that's that large could be up to 13 feet long. And it isn't hard to imagine some people, or some eels that surpass that size, like the 20-foot conger eel that was caught off the British coast back in 2015. Of course, more research is going to need to be undertaken to understand how an eel fits in with the Loch Ness Monster sightings, if in fact it does at all. But the team's findings revealed more about the loch than just ruling out Nessie candidates. The survey found plenty of DNA belonging to species that you wouldn't really expect to find in Loch Ness, derived from the 250 water samples and the 500 million genetic sequences taken from various areas of the loch at different depths, illustrating an environment populated by numerous species ranging from microscopic bacteria to larger creatures such as fish and mammals. The team identified the DNA of 11 species of fish, 3 amphibians, 22 birds, and 19 mammals. One of the more intriguing findings was the large amount of DNA from land-based species in the loch system. These included high levels of DNA from humans and a variety of species associated with us like dogs, sheep, and cattle. They also detected wild species local to the area such as deer, badgers, foxes, rabbits, voles, and multiple bird species. These findings show eDNA surveys of major waterways may be useful for rapidly surveying the biological diversity at a regional level. So, I mean, even though it's kind of like looking for Nessie, so to speak, it's really this whole project is kind of showing us what we can really use eDNA for. And there were some other surprises too. A lot of previously unknown microbial diversity was found in the eDNA results, including a microbe that usually lives in salt water. So there are still thousands of microbe species detected in the samples that have not yet been identified. So that work is ongoing. Like I said, they still have stuff they have to do. This was just the first round of results that they have released here. Now, this isn't the first time cryptid DNA research has turned up fascinating and or unexpected results. One time, DNA testing of hair samples said to have come from Bigfoot, Yetis, and other anomalous primates turned out to be, as you can suspect, nothing of the sort. But the research did turn up a tuft of fur from an extinct Paleolithic bear, which couldn't be explained. And just as that research didn't rule out the existence of Bigfoot, there's still a ray of hope for all of you Nessie fans out there. Loch Ness is vast. I mean, this thing is huge. Supposedly, you can take all of the world's population and fit it in Loch Ness 3 times. That's what I have been told. I don't know if that's true or not. That sounds too good to be true. But anyway, so getting back to this. So Loch Ness, obviously, is a huge loch. And given that the eDNA signals in water kind of dissipate quickly, because they only last a few days up to maybe just a couple of weeks at most, there's the possibility that there's something present in the loch that wasn't detected because the samples were obtained like in the wrong places at the wrong time, or the metabarcoding method couldn't detect Nessie because the sequence couldn't be matched to anything in the database, in the known database. Remember, there's still some things they still had to check here, right? So this investigation, like every investigation before it, has no definitive proof of the Loch Ness Monster. So a guy in the documentary said something that I thought was pretty profound. He says that proving something does not exist is pretty much impossible. And that's kind of true. You can prove all kinds of things exist, but proving that something doesn't exist is damn near just impossible. However, they do have a further theory to test, the one of the giant eel, and that may be worth exploring in more detail. This finding would suggest that at least a portion of the Nessie sightings were of abnormally large eels, although this description doesn't quite fit the reports that describe a more plesiosaur-like creature with a small head attached to a long neck, i.e. the 1934 sighting made by motorcyclist Arthur Grant. That's when all this started coming into effect. But provided that these reports are accurate, this could mean that the eels in question may taper along their length toward their head, giving the impression of a long neck. Or maybe there are more than one cryptid in Loch Ness. Maybe there are two cryptids in Loch Ness. Now, a paper detailing the team's findings is coming soon. And I saw a tweet from Dr. Gemmell that had a link to where the report was, and I didn't click on it because I was at work and I didn't have time to do it. And I wish that I would have so I could read the report. But obviously, the gist of it is that there's nothing to support the existence of a Loch Ness monster or any other type of prehistoric or as yet unknown creature, at least not yet. Now, if you have listened to this show since way back in the day, since I first started, basically, you'll know that I have never been a believer in the Loch Ness Monster. And I know, oh my God, how can you do a podcast like this and not be a believer in the Loch Ness Monster? Well, look, I have always described myself as an open-minded skeptic, right? And just because someone tells me that there's a plesiosaur in the lake doesn't mean that I'm going to buy that. And just because I get shown some grainy pictures or fuzzy video or out of focus video or something like that says, here's the evidence, doesn't mean that I'm going to believe it. So you have to take everything and approach it logically and scientifically, at least as far as I'm concerned. And I think a lot of other people would agree with me as well. And there's just nothing to support the idea that there is a plesiosaur or even a family of plesiosaurs that are in the loch. Number one, if there's just one, reportings have been around of this thing for 1,500 years. So this thing has to have an enormously long lifespan, number one. Number two, there has to be a shit ton of food in and around the lake for this thing to eat so it can survive 1,500 years. And I know that the Loch Ness is huge, but would there really be enough food to sustain one giant plesiosaur for 1,500 years, yet alone a family of them? If a plesiosaur's lifespan doesn't last 1,500 years or greater, that means there has to be a breeding population. Now, a breeding population indicates that there has to be multiple plesiosaurs in the loch. And there's just no evidence to support that. So if there were a breeding population, one would think that you would see these things all over the place all the time. And we'd have all kinds of evidence instead of just fuzzy little grainy pictures and out of focus videos and stuff, So I really doubt that the plesiosaur living in Loch Ness theory is. There's just it's not viable. There's nothing. It's just not. That's not it. I don't know what else to say. There's no plesiosaur living in Loch Ness, and the DNA study shows that there's no plesiosaur. Now, I hate to bust your bubble about something like that, especially if you're a believer in Loch Ness, but you can't take the evidence from this study and go, oh, we have to throw that out the window. You just can't do that. Now, what's going to be interesting in the next weeks and months ahead after, since this thing has been released, is all the believers in Nessie. I'm anxious to see what their response to this scientific study is. That DNA evidence, you just can't fake it, right? Maybe in the future we can do it, but as of right now, I don't think we possess the technology to fake DNA evidence. So if the DNA evidence does not support the theory of a Loch Ness Monster, how are all the people out there who believe in it going to counteract this? What's their comeback on this? Now, if you listen to what I was saying earlier, the eDNA results degrade quickly in water. So, I guess on the fringes you can say, well, maybe, they just didn't get the samples in the right spot at the right time because they only last for a few days, and Nessie had already been through there 2 days ago or a week ago or something like that. But even that is, in my opinion, kind of, thin. And I think that's the best argument that you're going to be able to have against the eDNA data. Now, something else that is has been proposed that I am not an opponent of, that I do think there could be some validity to this, is the time slip theory. What if what we're seeing is actually some sort of vortex, time vortex in and around the loch. And what we're seeing is actually either creatures that are momentarily coming through the vortex, or are we seeing something that's like a recording? Are we seeing something that happened millions of years ago out in the loch? Now, I don't know how long the loch has been there. Excuse me. And I don't know what the geography surrounding the loch was back in the Jurassic area millions of years ago. I can't tell you that. However, I do believe that there is a little bit of validity to the time warp or the time slip theory, because, well, there are all kinds of things that happen in not only on this planet, but in this universe. There are all kinds of things that happen that we have yet to grasp and have yet to understand. And mysterious things happen all over the place. Ships and planes go missing in the Bermuda Triangle all the time, and there's really there's explanations for it, but nothing that is concrete and that people can say, yes, this is definitely what's causing all these things. So if there is some sort of vortex that occurs in the Bermuda Triangle, which there's evidence for, could there also be some sort of vortex in Loch Ness? Now, I know you're saying, okay, you don't believe that there could be a creature or a breeding population of creatures of plesiosaurs left over from the Jurassic area living in the loch, but you'll go way out on the fringes and believe that there could be some sort of portal or time slip. Actually, yes, I think that is a possibility. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying it's a possibility. I would like to be able to have the technology to measure and study things like that. It doesn't exist, not yet, at least not on this planet, but it is a remote possibility. And when I say remote, I mean minuscule. I mean it could actually be there. That's a little bit, to me anyway, more plausible than one plesiosaur surviving for thousands of years, or a whole breeding population of plesiosaurs that have been in this lake for millions of years, and we can only see a couple of humps every so often, and when we get pictures of it, it's grainy and blurry and out of focus and all that crap. No. But that could explain why when you do see it, the time slip theory or the vortex theory could explain why when you do see it and you try to take video or pictures of it, that it never comes out exactly right because of whatever interference is going on through the time slip or through this recording that you're seeing. Because after all, let's take that theory and look at ghosts and hauntings and stuff. So once again, if you listen to my show for any length of time, you know that my theory that I've always had is that there's three types of entities. There's ghosts, there's spirits, and there's poltergeists. And a ghost is your most basic. It is for all intents and purposes, it is a recording of something that happened in the past. And this is usually surrounding some sort of an emotional event, most of the time tragic, but it could be something joyous. But there's a lot of emotional energy that's surrounding this, or maybe it's from something that's because of something that someone did on a routine basis. Every day the woman walked to the window on the second floor to look out over the bay to see if her lover's ship was coming back. And she did this every day for years and years and years. And she had all this emotion. So what you're seeing when you see the ghost of the woman walking to the window to look out over the bay for her returning lover, that what is a recording in time. So you can take that theory and translate that to also the time slip theory of the Loch Ness Monster, which is it is a recording in time of something that happened that we're just able to see. And we don't know how this happens. We have theories, but we can't pinpoint it down specifically. So to me, that makes much more sense than anything about a plesiosaur surviving a lone plesiosaur surviving for thousands of years. It has to be millions of years in Loch Ness, or even a breeding population of plesiosaurs swimming around in Loch Ness, and no one's ever seen a family of them. It's like, oh look, there's 5 plesiosaurs swimming around. No one's ever had that. You have people who said, oh, I captured 2 anomalous things, in the water, a hump over here and a hump over there. And you look at their picture or their video and you're like, I don't see it. What WTF, man, So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents on the whole deal. Do I think that there is a Nessie? No, I don't. I've never thought there was a Nessie. It's fun to believe. I would love to be proven wrong. I'd love for someone to have a good video of Nessie or a good picture of Nessie, or hell, even capture it. Don't kill it, capture it. Let's see it. I would love to be proven wrong, but however, I don't think I'm ever going to be. The time recording theory that I just talked about, I think if someone's seeing an actual plesiosaur or some sort of other aquatic creature from the Jurassic era or some other era, I think that is going to be the most plausible explanation for what these people are seeing and how they're able to see it. Now, you may have another theory. You may be saying, Sam, man, you're a complete dumbass. I can't believe that you're saying these things. And that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. As a matter of fact, I don't want you to agree with everything that I say. When I started doing this podcast all the way back in 2004, before podcasting was even a thing, I never wanted to have any type of agenda, personal agenda or otherwise. I just wanted to take these unusual topics, talk to you, the listener, about them, present what I perceived as to be the facts, researched to the best of my ability, lay all that out to you and say, you make up your own mind. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. I'm totally cool with it. I would love to hear from you guys about what you think about the Loch Ness Monster and what it is or what it could be. Or maybe you can explain to me why these eDNA results aren't valid and we had to take them and throw them away whenever it comes to the Loch Ness Monster. So if you've got your own theory, if you think I'm full of crap, if you think that the Dr. Gemmell's report is full of crap, email me. Let me know. Sandman@ParaReality.com. Call in the studio line, 615-692-1170. Leave a message. Post on the ParaReality Radio Facebook page. Tweet me at ParaRealRadio. Let's start a debate. I would love to hear some of your theories about what you think is going on at Loch Ness. Are these eDNA results, are they valid to you or not? And I welcome the debate if you want to debate. Hell, if you want to come on the show and be a guest and debate me about Loch Ness Monster existing or not, or why we should take these eDNA results, as I rattle the paper here, why we should take those and just throw them away and not believe them. I want to hear from you guys. So you let me know what you think, and I welcome your comments. I said, if it's different than mine, that's great. Let's have a debate. If you think I'm spot on, you can let me know that too. I'm always happy to hear from everybody. And you know that I read emails back, whether they're good or comments or not. I read emails, and just because your theory or your opinion differs from mine doesn't mean that I am going to automatically discount you, and you should not automatically discount me. But at the same time, I don't want you to blindly believe something just because I'm telling it to you. I want you to do your own research, form your own opinion, come to your own conclusion, and that is always healthy, especially in the realm of the paranormal. And the paranormal people just doesn't mean ghosts and demons and poltergeists and hauntings and stuff. It's all things that we don't understand. It's cryptozoology. It's cryptozoology. It's UFOs. It's aliens, ancient alien theory. It's also ghosts and hauntings and all that sorts of stuff, but it's such a broad topic, and I want you to, listen to the show, keep an open mind. Just because I believe in something or that I'm telling you something doesn't mean that I automatically want or expect you to have the same opinion that I do. So that's my soapbox. I'm going to get off of that, and I want to, before I wind the show down, I have about 10 minutes left, and I want to talk about something that I have been following ever since its inception, and it is, as I am recording this podcast this morning, and you are listening to it this evening, it is September the 20th, 2019. And that is the date of the quote-unquote Storm Area 51 event, which was posted by some dude on Facebook as a joke that actually took off and had something like over 2 million people sign this petition about they're going to go storm Area 51. Now, I've been following this ever since the story broke, and I've posted numerous things about it on my social media accounts. And you know that if you followed me on social media, you know that I think that this whole Storm Area 51 thing is a bad idea. Now, the guy who came up with this whole thing, his name is Matty Roberts. That's the guy who created the event. And he actually, he's confirmed that it was not a real thing. He did not actually mean for people to storm Area 51. In fact, he's disavowed any responsibility for any casualties if people actually attempt to storm this base. But he came up with this as a joke, and it took on a life of its own. I've seen interviews with this guy, and poor guy, I kind of feel sorry for him because I don't think that he meant, I know that he did not mean for this to get as big as what it was. And I don't really think he wanted people to take it seriously, but apparently there's been over 2 million people who signed this petition thing that he created. And a lot of them are going to Area 51, and they're already starting to show up. And they've taken this idea of storm Area 51. There's my creepy clock again. Anyway, they've taken this idea of storm Area 51 and actually turned it into a music festival, alien stock. And people, it's starting today, right? And people are already showing up for this thing. The last that I saw was there's 100 people that are gathered outside of one of the entrances to Area 51 with signs and all that other sorts of stuff, and demanding to be, have the secrets revealed, get let in, all this other sorts of stuff. And I'm telling you, man, this is a bad idea. This is a horribly bad idea. If you're thinking about actually storming Area 51, I urge you to please reconsider this whole thing. The government has already put out warnings and said, if you do this, you'll probably get shot, and they're well within their rights to do so because, let's face it, Area 51, top secret things go on there, and the outside world doesn't really need to know about these things. And you can say, oh, well, there's aliens there and there's technology and spaceships and all this other sorts of stuff. And maybe there is, but there's also other things there that have nothing to do with aliens and reverse engineering UFOs and all this other sorts of stuff. But even if that's all that really is there, is UFOs and alien technology, or even if there's none of that there and they're just building new fighter jets or other technology, the government says this is a top secret area. You don't need to be here. And if you show up and you come on the base, we can shoot you. And it's amazing that out of all the years that people have been going to Area 51 and, getting on the base and seeing how far they can get before they get stopped. It's so amazing that no one has actually been shot yet. But if there's a crowd of people out there and these people start coming onto the base, I guarantee you that this is going to end bad. It'll probably be the first time where someone actually does get shot. So if you are there at Alien Stock, or if you're one of the hundreds of people that are right now gathered outside the gates of Area 51, and you are thinking about actually storming in there, thinking you're going to find whatever, I urge you to reconsider. This is a bad, bad, bad idea, and you're probably going to get hurt or worse. There are worse things than getting hurt. And I urge you to all use your I was going to say your good common sense, but that kind of goes out the window when you're thinking about storming up in the Area 51. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm looking on the internet right now, and they're saying that there are people that, already someone has been, oops, sorry about that. Someone's already been arrested Let's see. Lincoln County Sheriff Kerry Lee estimated late Thursday that about 1,500 people had gathered at the festival sites, and more than 150 people also made the rugged trip several additional miles on bone-rattling dirt roads to get within a safe distance of the gates. One person was arrested and one person was detained by sheriff's deputies earlier this morning. I'm looking at a picture of all these people gathered out there with signs, clap alien cheeks, save ET from the government. People says aliens are locked up in there. There's going to be a news briefing later on today at some point in time that, yeah, man, this is just not going to be, it's not going to end well if people actually decide to go ahead and try to storm the gates. I know that the government has said that, once again, not to do it, but they've also said that they beefed up security for this weekend. And there was also supposedly a website that was going to let people have live views of the festival via webcam, and I'd really be interested in looking at those and seeing what happens out there. But anyway, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and say, if you're out there and you're actually thinking about going onto the base this weekend, please don't do so. It's a bad idea. People are going to get hurt. People are already getting arrested and detained. Just don't do it. Bad idea. All right, everybody, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to wind it down. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's show. Let me know what you thought about it by sending me an email to sandman@ParaReality.com. If you want to know more about the show, get online, head on over to ParaReality.com. That's where you can find out all kinds of information about the show. You can listen to the current and past episodes there. And if you click on the Extras tab, it'll take you to a page where you can join the official ParaReality Radio forum. Free to join, by the way. You can shop in the ParaReality Radio store and even watch some show videos and other things like that. Also, don't forget to look up ParaReality Radio on Facebook, like that Facebook page, and follow me on Twitter. My handle is @ParaRealRadio. I post a lot of interesting stuff on Facebook and Twitter, like upcoming shows and special guests, interesting articles, stuff like that. So make sure you follow me on both of my social media accounts to stay updated with what's happening in the world of ParaReality Radio. And you can now listen to the show on a variety of different streaming, podcasting, web hosts and streaming platforms, just about every kind there is out there. You can, of course, listen to the show right here on Spreaker, but you can also listen to it on Facebook and YouTube. My YouTube channel is ParaReality1, the number 1 out behind ParaReality, no spaces or underscores. It's ParaReality1 on Facebook, on YouTube. If you want to stream the show, you can do it from ParaReality.com, or you can stream it off of Google Play, Stitcher, Player FM, Spotify, CastBox, and iHeartRadio. Still working on trying to get the iTunes thing worked out. Also, if you have a smart speaker, you can enable any of the aforementioned podcast host skills. Open them up and simply say, play the ParaReality Radio podcast. So everybody, that about does it for the show. Like I said, my next show is going to be on Friday, October the 4th, 2019, which just so happens to be the date of my wedding anniversary. So I will be pre-recording a show as usual, and it'll be up and running while I'm out celebrating my wedding anniversary with my wife. 5 whole years married. Anyway, next show, Friday, October 4th, 2019, 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Going to have Eric from the World We Live In podcast doing the co-host thing back in the studio, and we're going to be doing a follow-up episode to our Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theory. So make sure you tune in and find out. Everybody, I hope that this radio program opens up your minds to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. I hope you have a wonderful evening, a great weekend, and I'll see you again in on October the 4th. Good night, everybody.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.